Hola, ¿cómo están? And what is going on, guys? DarkScheme here. Hope you're all having a good week. And today, I'll be talking to you guys a little bit about an article I read and a little bit of a study that they showed on it. So I was going to put this over some gameplay, but I felt like it was going to go a little longer than usual. So I decided to make a vlog. I don't know how often I'll be doing these, but I thought why not just do a vlog because it's going to be a little bit longer. So that's kind of the reason why I'm doing it. So I do have my notes here a little bit, so that is kind of why you'll see me looking off to the left here. But yeah, let's get started. So this article was by Quantic Foundry, and they did a study on the correlation between gamers' age and the interest the gamer had. So they did find out that as a gamer gets older, they lose interest in competitive-based games, and they keep their interest in strategic-based games. And a younger audience is obviously more interested in competitive games, while kind of still keeping an interest in strategy games. But they also found out that the average age of a gamer is 35 years old. And they did a study of both male and female, and this is the average age, and it makes sense. The gamers who grew up with Nintendo, who were young kids, are now at this age range. So the average video game consumer is at this point, which also means that the average gamer is also more interested in strategy-based games rather than competitive-based games. And this was actually pretty interesting to hear and to see because one of the things is that right now competitive gaming is growing. Maybe it isn't growing for the older audience, but is definitely growing for the younger audience. So I am definitely interested in seeing this study being continued and seeing it in the next 10 to 20 years and seeing how that changes, because competitive gaming is definitely a big thing for people of my generation and younger as well. And I do want to point out that this study is a kind of black and white study. It doesn't show any of the many shades of gray that the video game market has. There isn't just competitive-based games and strategy-based games. There's a ton more, so I want you guys to take this all with a grain of salt. And this is kind of the reason why I'm making this video, is I wanted to kind of test to see how accurate this study. So I'm kind of basing it off of my reasoning for this study being real and maybe not. So their reasoning in the article for older gamers being more involved or having more of an interest in strategy games is because responsibilities. As you get older, you need to take care of more things. You have a family to take care of. Maybe you have a job you have to go to. All that good stuff you can't slack off, and video games kind of just takes a priority shift downward while everything else goes up. That's kind of their reason, and it kind of caters to other things. And because of this, I kind of came up with my own reasons as to maybe why this is true. And one of the reasons that I came up with was maybe as you get older, you start losing friends who play the same games as you, and because you lose friends who play the same game, you kind of start losing interest in the game you're playing. And usually at a young age, you are playing with your friends. As you get older, everybody kind of just moves on naturally. That's kind of what happens with games here and there. So of course, that is also leaning towards, as you get older, your reflexes also get slower. And as most people know, when your reflexes get slower, you are already down competitively in a game because you can't react as fast as others because you're just a little older. That's kind of just one of the things that comes with it. But if maybe not these points, maybe another reason why people are not playing or are less interested in competitive games is because of how long competitive matches actually last. And this is definitely catered to the whole responsibility aspect. Now, competitive games, in games like CSGO, League of Legends, they're about 30 minutes long, and sometimes that is actually a little bit too long for people who have responsibilities. You have laundry to do, dishes to wash, all that stuff. And personally for me, I think that last point really is something that I didn't really think about until I actually read the article. And I'm a 23-year-old male, and competitive games is great. I watch them all the time. Maybe I don't play them all the time because at the moment it's just tough for me. So I kind of live that lifestyle in which I play video games, but I also try to keep myself free for whatever reason, and that's kind of just how I am at the moment. Doesn't mean I like strategy-based games more, it just means I don't have as much time to play competitive-based games. I still like competitive-based games, so again, there's the kind of shades of gray area in which they don't really go into. And that last point is something that I think really kind of just got me thinking. I kind of started going into a trail of thinking. So, as gamers get older, they have less time to play games because of responsibilities. So what do developers of games do when they want to get as many people, when they want to get the average gamer, the average consumer to buy their game and to play their game and to continue playing their game? Well, they make a game that is easily accessible to as many people as possible. And games now are doing this. I think they're already going towards that way, and I think the most prevalent video game market out there that is easily accessible is mobile gaming. And whether you believe it or not, mobile gaming is a thing. They make a ton of money off of just a bunch of different things. So there's money there to be made. But it's also actually leaking into the AAA games as well. I think the biggest developer that is a good example of this is Blizzard. Blizzard has been kind of making games as accessible as possible. There's kind of this whole thing that's been happening. I think the example and personal experience for me is Diablo 3. You can play solo and be able to pause the game and everything freezes. You can be in the middle of a timed Greater Rift run. You can pause the game and go do whatever. You can come back and your Greater Rift run will still be fine. It's kind of just one of those things. And they're also trying to keep players by introducing what into certain games. Maybe this isn't all games, but they try and keep players by introducing microtransactions. And that's kind of just like a thing that I have already kind of gone into the topic of games being a service and not a product anymore. And I already have a little bit of a video talking about that. But I won't get too much into that, but it makes sense because the players who have less time to play video games are the ones who are working to get money, and they're the ones who have money to spend on video games like microtransactions. So it makes sense. It's kind of just like connecting the dots here. And maybe I'm connecting dots that I specifically see, so maybe it isn't all there. But that's, like I said, just my opinion. But it's pretty interesting to see where games are kind of headed and where they're actually already at with some developers. I think Overwatch is being developed so that game times are quick, but it's also being made so that it is competitive. But it's kind of like a good mix of both strategy and competitiveness. And it's a first-person shooter, and first-person shooters are always a little bit harder to grasp than other games, with the exception of StarCraft, I think, personally. But that kind of got me thinking, and that kind of wanted me to see this study continue, because, as I said, I'd be really interested to see where this study could go in 10 to 20 years when my generation of gamers and younger gets to that years of 35 years old, and see if they're still interested in competitive gaming with all the esports growing and all the competitive games that people are interested in, like CSGO. Or maybe it won't even be like that at all. It could be a completely different graph that we're actually looking at, because we do have access to things like live streaming, where competitive gaming is only a fraction of things that people watch and consume and enjoy. So that is definitely something to look into, and it's actually become an extremely interesting article that I read for the day. But that is pretty much it. That is my little rant for you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and if you're still around at this point of the video, I appreciate it immensely. So now I will ask you guys, what do you guys think about the article? Obviously, it's a little bit black and white. There is definitely something in between. And do you correlate to the entire study that they did? Are you older and are more interested in strategy-based games, or are you younger, still like strategy-based games, but are a little bit more on the competitive side of base games? Let me know in the comments section. And as always, I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.